Hello and welcome to Neuro Nomads. We are two expat moms raising neurodiverse kids. And we are here to give you some support. We're here to share funny stories. And hopefully this morning you can find some good tips and tricks for traveling with your neurodiverse children. This morning we're going to talk about going to theme parks, going to busy places with neurodiverse kids, going on airplanes, traveling internationally, and some of the things that we have found that helped us a lot, and some of the lessons that we've learned throughout all of our travels. So I hope that you find this interesting as we go into travel months, summer months, and yeah, let's get to it. Good morning, darling.
Hello.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Krista.
And I'm
Yes, and this is Dallia. I'm an expat mom living in Florida. I have 5 kids, 3 are whom are neurodiverse. And my dear friend Dallia, where do you live?
I live in Abu Dhabi, and I have 3 neurodiverse children. And we've lived in 9 countries, 3 of them twice. So we've moved internationally 12 times. I am an expert at traveling internationally on my own with my kids because, as all of us expats know, neurotypical and neurodiverse, we all know that the husbands only join us for like 2 weeks out of the summer holidays, yet we are traveling back and forth with the kids constantly. So done it many times. And even before I knew that the children were neurodiverse, I used to have a specific set of things that I used to do to get through them. And so we'll discuss some of those things in today's podcast, which really helped me survive those long journeys.
Yeah. And I realized, oh my goodness, because we're like really newbies at doing this, I totally realized that we always say it's a podcast, but it's actually YouTube and podcast. It doesn't really matter,
No.
but I don't know. Sometimes little things like that, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm always saying it's a podcast. Welcome to the podcast. It is a podcast, but there's also a video you can watch depending on what platform you're watching this on. And I also I'm a very, very, very terrible speller. It is like one of my awful, well, I wouldn't say awful. I've learned to embrace it, but my neurodiverse problems that I have that has made, actually with spell check, made life so much easier. So when I was creating the font for our intro on our YouTube video, I spelt neuronomads wrong. And my husband was like, so like every single YouTube video that like came up, it's like totally spelt wrong. It's like missing letters. And Mark's like, did you know it's missing like 3 letters? And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so embarrassing. But nobody's ever said anything, but I've changed it now. So
there you go. Funny.
Human.
Exactly. So we wanted to do this podcast today about traveling because it's summer coming and the summer holidays for all the Northern Hemisphere and even expats in the Southern Hemisphere that are still at Northern Hemisphere schools. This is the big travel time. And I recently went to Japan with one of my kids for 2 weeks, and you've recently gone to Disney World, Orlando, and Universal Studios. And so we've got these travel experiences really fresh in our minds, and we've been following a bit of an agenda where we've spoken about understanding that you're a neurodiverse family to getting to diagnosis to now what. And we'll get back to that agenda, but we just thought it would be perfect timing to slot this travel podcast on because this is what's all happening in our lives right now. And then we'll get back to all the other topics that we were developing to do.
Sounds great.
Right. So do you want to tell what have been your go-to tips and tricks for your recent travels and things that you've found have really helped in the past?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in the past, when I've traveled with my children, again, sort of before I realized that they were neurodiverse, you would go to the airport or you would go to these amusement parks or events where you would travel somewhere, even a road trip, and you would see like other kids and you're like, oh my goodness, like they're like behaving, so they're just standing in the line waiting with their parents, being so cute. And then there's my kid like on the floor, like screaming, crying, like, biting himself or whatever, trying to pull his brother's pants down. And I'm just like, I'm never coming here again. I'm never doing this to myself again. It's like that famous last words.
Oh, I've said
And
that many, many times. That's it. You're never going on holiday again.
the demonic mother voice comes out, right? Um, so, and so now that I've, realized that my kids are neurodiverse and they do require a different set of accommodations when we travel to make it a successful time, we have had so many beautiful trips together. And that's, I guess, the hope that I want to project in this episode is that it doesn't have to stop you or hinder you from going places with your children and having a successful travel experience with them or an amusement park experience with them. Like we always say, like expectation has to be set to where your child is at. You cannot have this expectation that they're going to stand in a line for 30 minutes and behave themselves and have small talk with you and it will be bonding time. And, that's not going to happen. And that's okay. But as long as the shame and like, I think the realization of this is how my child is and I am going to work with that, then everyone stays happy and the anxiety level of the whole group and the relationship bond between you and your child is going to be so much stronger for it. So I would say for me, some of the big tips that I needed to incorporate that I personally struggled with was bringing devices with me wherever I went. I kind of grew up in a generation where the devices were non-existent and then they became sort of existent and then they became like an everyday thing. And so for me, and like I'm a Christian, so I think a lot of people in religious circles in particular have like a little bit of a weird thing around devices, and it's like considered to be not a good use of time to be on screens a lot. And I think too, not just in the Christian circles and the religious circles, but in general, I think we're aware that screen usage has gone from like 0 to 120 in the past, 20 years. And so I personally had a lot of shame around giving my child a device when we were out, like at a restaurant, for instance. I would judge other parents, honestly, when I would see that their child would be on a device at the table, and I'd be like, shouldn't they be talking to their child? And yes, there needs to be a time and a place for talking to your child, but if your child is overstimulated, if it is loud in the restaurant, if they are tired, if you have traveled a long way, if their tank, well, Dahlia calls them spoons, maybe you want to explain about the spoons. I think that's, really fitting.
So what I've discovered by listening to the autistic community is that they talk about having a certain amount of spoons per day. So, for example, if you've had a great night's sleep and everything goes your way, say you start off with 10 or 15 spoons, and then each activity it takes you for the day takes out an amount of spoons. And for some neurodiverse people, it could be 2 spoons just to like brush your teeth and get dressed in the morning. Sometimes that you've woken up and you've only got 2 spoons to spare that day, and so getting up and brushing your teeth and getting dressed is not actually an option. So they talk about having the spoons or the energy to get through the day or do this thing. So especially when you're traveling, your children are out of their environment and things are loud, things are different. They feel safe in their devices world. That's their safe place, because whether they're in their bedroom or they're in a busy restaurant or something like that, they're still absorbed into that world where they feel safe because it's very familiar to them. So I think, whereas neurotypical children, yes, you can put boundaries on devices, but I think for a lot of these neurodiverse, specifically autistic children, it really is their safe space, especially when the world around them is chaos. So I think if we put away the judgment and the shame, and I know since I've met you that all around everything, through diagnosis, through like how do people look at me, the way I'm parenting my child, that you have carried a lot of shame. And I think the important thing is to understand that don't judge yourself harshly and don't judge others, because we are our harshest critics. And so when you're judging others, you're really judging yourself, because you're like, no, I couldn't give my children devices. Why? Because I think other people would be judging me. And so when you say you were judging other parents, you were actually judging yourself, because you're thinking, oh, I couldn't do that, because then people would think of me what I'm thinking of these parents now. So, yes, I think especially neurodiverse children that need their devices to self-regulate, I think especially in such chaotic environments as traveling, I think it's very important that they have access to their devices. To help them feel regulated, so that you can have a calm transition through airports, through in restaurants, in hotel lobbies, and all those things, so they can retreat into their safe space. And therefore you have got time to deal with checking in, checking out, getting on the airplane, and things like that.
Yes, 100%. Like recently when we went to Disney, my 14-year-old, who is very much into chess lately, one of his safe things that he has been doing lately is he has his cell phone that he just got this year, and he plays chess on there. It's just like an app game, and that just keeps his mind busy. So when he's feeling like overwhelmed, the noise is getting too loud, he's feeling bored, it stops him from like poking at his brothers and sisters and trying to find like an inappropriate, because he used to do that all the time. He would find that kind of outlet. He would need that outlet for that
dopamine hit,
his anxiety and energy. Yeah. And he would just start trying to get into it with his siblings, which made them really angry, which made me have to intervene in a, aggressive way to kind of calm it down. And it just would like trickle through the whole family and kind of make the whole thing like super, super uncomfortable. And, everyone became elevated, and then we all needed to have resets. And it was just like this constant like thing. So anyways, we went to Universal just this past week. And what some of the things that really, really helped us there was we did get the disability pass, both at Universal and at Disney. And that was an incredible gift to have from the company. And I really appreciate Disney and Universal for having these passes available, because it really helps these kids who struggle to wait long in like confined spaces and lines, with no kind of end in sight, not knowing like how long is it going to be. And so what these passes are is, they're very easy to kind of figure out how to get them. You can watch videos like on TikTok or wherever. This is how I found out how to do it. And then basically you just go on to their website and you just fill out the form. And then both Disney and Universal will call you, and they'll interview you, and they'll ask you a set of specific questions. And one of the questions that we were asked was like, you can say like, oh, my child has autism, or my child's, sensitive to
sounds
or whatever the diagnosis is. But what they really are looking
for diagnosis.
For Universal Studios, you do have to present a form, like you scan it or you take a picture of it and you email it to them that says the diagnosis. But even if you don't have that, you can say like, I have an anxiety disorder. This is how it presents in these situations. This is what happens to me. I have a panic attack, or I do whatever, and that will be enough for them to probably issue you the pass. It is a lot more straightforward with Universal in particular. If you have the diagnosis and the doctors, we had to put in a doctor's number that's here in the US. But for Disney, you didn't need to present a diagnosis from the doctor. You just needed to have an interview, and the child needed to be present for that interview. And so, yeah, for us, it was just, one of the things that Milo struggles with in particular is he picks at his skin if he gets really anxious, or if he's waiting for a long period of time, even if he has like his fidgets and his device and his book and all the little things, he will still like present that way. And so I just said that to them, and that was more than enough for them. And they sent us the pass, and we had to show up a little bit early and just grab a specialized card, and they put up to 6 people on that. So whoever's in that party, and it enabled us to skip lines to a degree. You can watch a video on it, but basically you go to the ride that you want to go on. They tell you a time to return, and then you can just go right into the fast pass lane. So you're not just sitting in that confined space. You're not necessarily skipping waiting. It's just you're able to move around and see and do other things.
You're able to wait in the shade, have an ice cream or whatever until it's time to come back into the line.
It was so incredible. It just made the time that we spent there. Nobody had a meltdown, which I was shocked.
Disney World and Universal, amazing.
And it was like hot weather. It was kind of high season, especially this last one we went to was summer vacation here. So yeah, it was very, very incredible. Another thing that I noticed, especially at Disney, there's so many loud sounds. There's fireworks at night. There's big shows that go on. And I was really shocked to see that Disney did not provide or carry any specialized noise canceling headphones. I know. I thought they're really missing out on an awesome marketing opportunity.
It would make a mint if they sold ear defenders.
Mickey Mouse ears or something on them. I think it would be fantastic.
Does Universal have ear defenders?
Milo does.
No, but I'm saying, did Universal have to sell?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
And I noticed a lot of kids, especially at Disney, because Disney is like more younger. Orlando, Universal is more older kids. Like I did notice a lot of kids kind of under 10 there. And usually at that age, they have developed coping mechanisms probably that, and it's not as loud as Disney, I found, but at Disney, there's always just random noises happening with the rides and the music, and kids can get very sensory overload. And I noticed a lot of kids having meltdowns. And I knew when I looked at that child right away, I'm like, they're just overstimulated, probably overtired, probably lots of sugar. But like, if they had one of those stimulations taken away, for instance, if they had ear defenders on to kind of cut the noise, I think it would be incredible. So that's one of the tips that I would give, or two, would be make sure you access that disability pass. And secondly, bring ear defenders, bring, your backpack full of your devices, fidgets, snacks that your kids like, hydration. A lot of kids had bubble wands, and I noticed that was really entertaining them. These little, bubbles that they could do when they felt bored.
Do you remember when we went to the carnival in England?
Yes.
And it was very noisy, but our kids did amazingly well. And we bought them the flashing lights, spinny things, and it entertained them for hours while we were waiting in queues and stuff. And the fact that they had each other to play with as well, I think was really good.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, you can also get a list from Universal and Disney of more quiet areas. And I noticed they had built into the parks little nooks that you could go and just be quiet, to kind of calm down, have a reset, have a break, have a snack before you enter back into the activities and the rides again. And they'll provide you, if you say to them, I'm looking for quiet spaces. My kid gets overstimulated. They'll give you a map. They'll so helpful. So that's another thing that you should definitely access when you're traveling to like some of these big theme parks, amusement parks. Yeah, we had such a great time though. And the last thing I'll share is that take rests. So we noticed in the past we would push our kids because we're like, we paid money for this. We're going to get the most out of our time. And we were like, we're staying here all day from morning till night. And we realized that our kids cannot handle that. So we purposefully chose hotels that maybe weren't as nice as some of the other hotels that were further away, but a hotel that was very close to the park. And then we also went in the morning and then we left in the afternoon. Then we reevaluated after having like 2 to 3 hours back at the hotel resting. What did we want to do in the evening? Did we feel like we were up to going back to the park until it closed, say at like 8 o'clock at night? Or so the fireworks are like literally at 9. So then you don't really get home till 10 if you watch the show, which are spectacular. But what was everybody up for? And we just kind of like took the pressure off because quality is better than quantity, in my opinion. Absolutely. And that is how I parent and take on these trips. Is I would much rather have 3 quality hours really enjoying ourselves, really having fun together, than having 8 hours where people are left angry, melting down, regretting they even came. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like the mindset needs to shift around the trip, and all that needs to kind of realize that it's so much better to leave happy and joyful and wanting more than to leave angry, bitter, and just regretting even trying to do the trip like that. Yeah.
So basically, going at the pace of the most needy in your family, because as soon as one person's melting down, then it starts a chain reaction of everybody. So I think going at the slowest pace that needs to be going, I think adds so much more enjoyment to travel.
Yeah. And also like now my kids are a bit older. So my daughter who's 16, I was able to say to her, because she can just go, and she just loves, to travel, and she just embraces life like to the fullest. And she has a lot of stamina for amusement parks. We were like, hey, if you want to stay, she had her cell phone, we were very close. And I just said, you're more than welcome to stay. We can come back and we can meet up with you after and stuff like that. So we were able to kind of offer that once they're kind of at a certain age, or 2 of the kids could stay together, like her and my 14-year-old could stay together and do some rides. We could meet them back a couple hours later type thing. So yeah, it's just adjusting. Every age and stage presents differently, but just don't push your kids beyond what they can handle. There'll be times for that, we went out for sushi to like a teppanyaki place, and there was young parents there with their 2-year-old kid, and you could tell like this kid was melting. So at the teppanyaki you have to like all sit together like at the table, and then the guy's like in the middle, and this kid was like literally screaming like from the minute we all sat down together, and I could just tell everybody was so uncomfortable. And the mom and dad were just like forcing this child to like stay at the table, and they're like letting it scream and letting it cry. And it was 8 o'clock at night, and I was just like thinking to myself, like, if I could give myself one piece of advice for when my kids were younger, it would be just like, leave them at home. Do not think that you need to bring your child out with you. They will not.
Good takeaways.
Not connect with your husband, which will not fill you up, which will not support your marriage when it is stressful being in a marriage with young kids or neurodiverse kids. It puts a whole level. And I just wanted to say to them, like, oh, like, let me hold your kid, let me help you. But like, I wanted to tell them, like, just get a babysitter next time. It's really worth it, because you feel like this pressure, like I need to bring my kid with me everywhere, or, I'm not a good parent. And honestly, like I just regret those years that I had really forced my kids to do everything with me, go everywhere with me, because of the pressure that I felt. That's what a good parent does, right? When actually I think it would be better for the child to like get an early bedtime, go to bed early, have a babysitter there, um, have the support, like build the support around you to be able to go out, get people around you that you trust, or an agency that, if you're traveling, that provides, screen checked childcare providers.
A lot
So
of good hotels have
they do.
built-in babysitting service, obviously at a cost, but
Yeah.
often when we traveled, when the kids were small, we would use the babysitters and we would normally stay in the hotel. So you go downstairs and so you're so close.
Yeah.
But you can have that adult time knowing that your child is safe.
Yeah.
At some points when our babies were small, also we'd have the baby monitor. And so we'd be in the restaurant downstairs in the hotel. And then if the baby started crying, 2 minutes up into the room.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, very good.
Yeah. So, okay. Sorry, I've been talking so much, but anyways, you're going to share with us some of your top travel tricks for flying,
Right.
and international travel.
So yes, we've taken a lot of trips, traveling, especially when we were in like Japan or Australia, and then traveling back to South Africa to visit, or traveling from Japan down to Australia, all basically around the world. So I found the best tips before I even knew my kids were neurodiverse was to take day flights. And when not possible, many times we flew from Japan to South Africa, and on Singapore Airlines. And often we used to stop in Singapore, and there used to be like a 10-hour layover. And I used to make it so it was at least an 8-hour layover, hopefully even longer. And then what's amazing in Singapore airport is they have like a hotel that you can rent by the hour from 6 hours. I think your minimum block is 6 hours, something like that. So,
awesome.
and they've got a swimming pool. And so you literally get off the plane, check into the hotel, put your stuff down. We would go swim, get the kids, like they've been 8 hours on a plane, get them to run around, swim until they were exhausted. Then we'd eat dinner or whatever meal time. Then we would go and sleep for like 6 hours. And then we were on a bed. And then we would get up and go on the next flight, which you have more spoons if you have that ability to rest in between those long haul flights. What I would say now is what's really good is again day flights. Most airports or countries have a kind of a disability program. So I picked up in Heathrow those sunflower lanyards, which indicates I have a hidden disability or whatever. And so I went to the counter and I said, "Oh, my son is autistic, and obviously he has his ear defenders on whenever we go through busy places." And I said to him, "My son is autistic. What do you have available to help us out?" And she was like, "Oh, you can go XYZ and get a lanyard that will help us identify that, to help you guys through all the busy areas and make life easier for you." And then she looked down and she goes, "Oh, in fact, I've got one here." So I didn't even have to go get the lanyard. She gave it to me, and now I've kept it. It's a Heathrow lanyard, but it's the sunflower lanyard, so airport staff know. So now I keep it, and whenever we just slip it on him. But also as expats, we often travel like to the new country luckily enough, on business class. And a lot of us, our husbands, travel so much that we have great status on the different airlines. So in that case, like when we go, and even if we're flying economy, if we check in through the business class and go to the business class lounge, etc., and we get fast passes through those kind of security checks and things like that, I don't even need the lanyards in that case, because we're lucky enough to use our status on the airlines. So I think that's a very good tip, is ask the airline what accommodations they have for neurodiverse children and families. And a lot of countries have now got a new queue for in the passport control for pregnant mothers and mothers with children and people with disabilities. So you go off into a different queue, and it's not like just standing in those long lines. I think that's a really good tip. Obviously, the ear defenders are amazing, because your child doesn't need them all the time, but to have them handy when they do need them. So another good tip that's really helped me, and it's going back to your theme park thing and the expectations. So if you live in a place that has theme parks, or I guess if you're going on holiday for a week, I would get like a 3-day ticket or a 5-day ticket or something like you guys did, and do what you did, like just go for little bits as you can handle, because then it's much more enjoyable. And what we do here in Abu Dhabi, we live on Yas Island, which is, they have 4 theme parks here, and you can buy a year pass. So we've bought a year pass for our kids, because sometimes we go and your kid doesn't have the spoons. The one time we went to Warner Brother World, and we were literally there for 10 minutes. And my son was like, I can't deal with this. It's too much for me. And so we left. Now, can you imagine you had bought a 1-day ticket for that, and then your child's literally telling me, like, I can't do it today, and I'm done. I want to go home. So if you have the opportunity to get a couple of day pass, or you live in a place, get the yearly pass or something, it does work out very reasonable if you take into account the amount of times you can go, and you can take it at your own pace, etc., etc. And then a few weeks ago in April, we took our youngest 10-year-old boy to Japan. And it was a fantastic experience, because we went at his pace. We pushed him a little bit when we could, but then we did some hardcore traveling, because we lived there and he was born there. And so he's been begging us to take him back. And so we said, when you're 10, we'll take you back. And then he turned 10 this year, so we were bound by our promises. But because we've lived there and had a level of Japanese, we went and we did like the off the beaten track stuff. We didn't do the normal touristy stuff. So there were some times when we pushed him, but then for 2 days afterwards, we had to chill in the hotel, so we just had to take it at his pace and realize when enough was enough and he needed to recover. And so it was an amazing, amazing trip, and he surprised us like beyond what we could have imagined, because he was able to get some grit, because some travel experiences aren't all easy peasy and stuff like that. So but definitely my big tips are: make sure it's day flights, find out what accommodations at the airport and hotels and tourist sites have accommodations for neurodiversity, and take advantage of them, use them. Tell people. I know some people are like, I just feel shameful or revealing my child's diagnosis or something like that. When it will help you, you should ask for the accommodations and use them. Even if you don't need them, use them, because we have such a tough time making our kids feel normal and welcome in different avenues in society, whether it's at school, whether it's traveling and things like that. Use the accommodations that are available to you.
Yeah. Another thing I would say too, as you were talking about that, is if your child, struggles to toilet or struggles with sleeping, with a lot of these kids, they get like overstimulated. They often need like something to help them to sleep at night. Make sure you bring those things with you, and don't try to like do what you would do at home. Like just use the tools while you're traveling to have the best experience possible. You can worry about those things when you get back home, sorting them out. But like, for instance, so I have these little sleep gummies that I use for the children, if they can't sleep at night, especially Milo, he struggles to sleep. And then if he can't fall asleep within a certain amount of time, he gets anxious that he's not going to sleep. And so I always make sure that, even if it's more than so many nights in a row, I give him the sleep gummies as he requests them or as he needs them. Because I know that if he has a good night's sleep, it's going to be way more successful for us.
And also for him is like the placebo effect. He knows
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
he's taking the gummy and then he thinks it works, and so it definitely works.
It
So
calms him.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And the same with toileting, like bring those, if they need a little laxative drink or something like that to make sure they're going regularly. Like if the food is different or you're traveling and you get kind of like that traveler's kind of tummy, make sure you bring those medications and extra things with you so that you can use them as you need them and don't feel stressed about having to use them, more than maybe you would at home.
Food is a big thing with traveling and autistic children. And I have one child that's adventurous with food, and but one child that is very, very picky with food. And even now, like 9, 10 months into living here in Abu Dhabi, we're struggling to find his safe foods. A variety of safe foods here, whereas in England he would eat certain things and that were readily available, and here they're not. So we're still struggling with that one.
Yeah. And I think too with traveling, like if they want to order chicken nuggets every night out at the restaurant, just let them. You can give them the veggies or the smoothies or whatever back when you get home, but just try to make it like those expectations as low as possible to make the time just so much more enjoyable. Rather than fighting on the kids on the small things, it doesn't matter. Just let it go, have a good time. I think that's about it. I'm going to make so what I've done is I've gone on to a particular website and I've made like a checklist for parents. So if they want, as they're preparing to get ready to travel and, you get kind of stressed, you're not remembering all the things. I've made a little quick checklist that you can just click the link and you can download this checklist and you can have it to go through as you're packing just to make sure that you've checked off everything and to make the trip as successful as possible. So I just wanted to provide that free resource for parents because I know for me, it took me a long time. And, Dallia and I both have learned what to bring, what not to bring on these trips. So I think between the two of us, this checklist is going to be an amazing resource for parents to just quickly look at.
Absolutely.
Even as little as like when you're packing their clothes, like what I do is I put, you have the little travel totes that you've bought, but I've put my kids' clothes in Ziplocs with the day on them. Monday, short and a t-shirt. So they can just have that one day out and that's it. Their clothes everywhere and they're overwhelmed. They don't know what to wear. And you just give them their little Monday Ziploc pouch with the underwear, the shirt and the shorts, and they don't have to think about it. And it's good to go. So just little things like that, right?
So having you having said that, these travel pouches, you can get them from on Amazon or the travel cubes or whatever they're called, and they like kind of square or rectangle, and they normally have like a mesh covering, and you zip it. And I put like all underwear in one, I put pajamas in another one, I put swimmers in another one, I put t-shirts in one, I put shorts in one, I put long pants in one, and things like that. And then I zip it, and then the suitcases are really, really organized. And then when you get to the hotel or wherever you're going, you don't have to unpack everything. You just unpack the cubes, unzip them, and then you have them there. And it's so easy because then what I do with like the dirty stuff is I just put that in one bag, like a laundry bag. And then when it's time to pack up and go home, you've got all the clean clothes still, and it's so much easier. You're not unpacking and packing and stuff like that. So that is a great tip. I didn't even remember that, but yes, I pack like that all the time. People that see my suitcases think I'm a little bit, but yeah. Yeah, people they think I'm a bit crazy, but it works. It works so well. And now I'm actually packing in 3 weeks' time or 2.5 weeks. We're going to South Africa again. Me and the kids alone, 3 kids, going on a 10-hour trip. But it is a day trip, so we leave at 9 a.m. We get there like 10 hours later or whatever the case may be. So that's easy peasy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And
Oh,
I can.
I
And it's
now
like,
remember one of my things I used to do when the kids were little, and we were doing these like 28-hour marathons to get across the world, was I used to take things in 5-minute increments.
yes.
So I was like, that was a really crappy 5 minutes, but let's concentrate on the next 5 minutes. No one's vomited on me in the last 5 minutes or cried or or something like that. Oh yes, pack extra clothes in your travel on luggage.
Yes.
Great tip. Because
Yeah.
so many times it might not even be vomit. Maybe you spill you've got a toddler in your hand and you spill your drink on you, and then for the next 10 hours you've got like some heavy tea smell on you or orange juice or something like that. So I always pack at least one full set of extra clothes for each person in the carry-on. And that is a great help as well.
I know. And I would say too, like, oh gosh, what was I going to say? Oh, bring supports for yourself. I mean, I think that's something we're all talking about, the kids needing their supports. But for me, like, I have different supports. Like, I have a rescue remedy. It's like a dropper of, it's just like a homeopathic. And if I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, I just drop a few drops of that under my tongue, and it just like helps me calm down. And I think another thing when you're traveling, like a lot of parents have drinks, because you're on holiday and you're maybe consuming a bit more alcohol than you normally would. And I think you have to be careful with that, because I know for me personally, if I like think to myself like, oh, I'm going to have a glass of wine or something like that and just relax, but then your kids are like having a meltdown, I think it can make it extra hard to deal with that once if you've consumed alcohol, because you're just wanting to then kind of go into calm mode, but you kind of have to be on for your kids in a way. So my recommendation would be like, if you want to have that glass of wine, do it like once you've arrived and put the kids to bed, so you can actually like have the glass of wine, enjoy yourself, sit down, relax. Because otherwise, I've just seen so many parents like trying to have a holiday with their drink in their hand, and their kids are needing them to be present with them, and they're just not able to because they're, in their relaxed mode. So they just get frustrated and angry with their children, right? Instead of dealing appropriately with them. And
100%. I used to be terrified of flying, and so I used to take like some anxiety medication and a couple of glasses of champagne, and then I used to cope with flying like that. But once I had kids, you can't do that. So I've had to put my big girl panties on and just deal with the kids. Now that they're a bit older, my flying anxiety has come back a bit. Because they're older, they're not so consuming of my attention anymore. They're doing their own thing on the plane, and it gives my mind lots of time to imagine every terrible scenario.
Yeah. One other thing that I use is, I call it, it's like a stress gummy. It's made by Ollie. I don't know. I know that I've seen them in the airports in Canada and in the US. But they're just like a GABA, and it's got like lavender and L-theanine, which are just all really naturally supportive, stress reducing herbs and supplements that are super good for your body, good for boosting your ability to handle anxiety and stress naturally.
Okay.
So I bring those with me, just in I have a little travel medicine kind of kit that I use. And then if I'm feeling stressed and I'm like thinking, oh, I guess the wine would be really nice right now to calm down, I just chew two of those. And like, honestly, it helps. So I'm surprised how much it helps because it's a natural thing, but it helps so much.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I guess that's about it. We're at 45 minutes. Is there anything else?
Like to, just before we go, I would like to just give, I know every time we do a podcast, I give a couple of books that I've been reading that I really recommend. So I'm just about to finish reading an amazing, amazing book called I Will Die on This Hill by Megan Ashburn and Jules Edwards. And one is a mother of autistic children, and she's got a social media presence called Not an Autism Mom. And the other one is a autistic parent of autistic children. And so there's a lot of the books basically all about, you have your neurotypical mother with autistic children, and then you also have the perspective of the autistic adults. So there's a lot of sometimes fighting between the two, because the mother of autistic children is saying, oh, my life is so hard because my children are neurodiverse, and the autistic adults are saying, it's not about you. It's if they're giving you a hard time, it's because they're having a hard time, kind of thing. So there's a lot of, going to and fro between the two different communities. But at the end of the day, what we want is the best for our children. And we're going to get that information from autistic adults, because they know what it's like to have grown up autistic. But on the other hand, nobody knows your children like you do. So instead of fighting with each other, this is a perfect joining of forces and supporting each other. Autistic adults helping the parent understand what it's like to be autistic, and also the mom who knows your children the best, able to use the information you get from them to help your child while understanding more of the experience of what your child's going through. So I found this so immensely helpful. Since the diagnosis for my kids, I started reading everything I could get my hands on about autism. And in the beginning, that was experts that were not autistic themselves. And then once I found the autistic adult community, I've started listening to them. And now I really try and read only books written from the autistic adult's point of view, so that I can understand as best as I can my children's lived experience. So I found I absolutely adored this book. It's
awesome. Listen to it.
Really, really good. And another cute little one that we did with my book club this month was The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. It's written in the perspective of an autistic boy. I think he's 15 or 16, and he finds a dog murdered in his neighborhood. And it's a narrative of his life from the point of an autistic, what is labeled as high functioning. And it was written in 2005 era, I think 2003, something like that. And what I loved about the book is that it gives you an insight into the brain of an autistic person that nobody can really tell is autistic, but he acts a bit weird, kind of. And I'm doing my hands in air quotes for people that are listening and not watching.
Weird.
What was really wonderful for me was to kind of understand some of the thoughts that go in my kids' heads when they do some behaviors, and also made me really, really sad for how bad the verbiage and the way that nobody knew anything about autism in those days. And so the way people treated him and the way his parents struggled because they didn't have any understanding of autism. And so it makes me happy that how much better we're doing now, but also sad for what previous generations of autistic, and there's still in today's time autistic children that are not getting the understanding that they need because there's not enough awareness in the world. So even though it's a fiction, it's I found it really useful to read that book. So
Thank you. Well, no, it's good. I think another great podcast idea would be different countries, because and their understanding around mental health and autism. And I have found, living here in Florida, it is probably about 10 years behind the times as it was in England. In England, it was, they're much more aware and accepting, still a little bit behind the times in the general population, but definitely here it's like way far back, like the way people view even getting a diagnosis, the conversations that I've heard and had, and it's just so different, and it's shocking, actually.
Yeah. And then here in the Middle East, there's still a lot of shame and hiding it. I mean, here in UAE, we are very, very progressive. The UAE is such a progressive country, and they're changing all the time with laws and things like that regarding everything here.
Yeah.
So they're progressing at such a great rate. Yes, they started off really behind. But now they really are moving at such a quick pace in trying to understand differences and allowing people freedom to be who they are, and putting laws in place to protect people. And here they have a fantastic thing called Person of Determination, which is like a disability card for the country you live in, which is amazing, because you get free entry into things and you get discounts on things. And so it's really, that's a great thing to have if you live here in the UAE. And so
I think we're in a time of acceleration of awareness, even with episodes and shows coming out on Netflix that kind of highlight what autism can look like, in society. And
yes, it brings me to there's a new Netflix show called Geek Girl.
I watched it. I totally binged the other day. Yeah,
it's amazing, because it was based on a series of books that the author is autistic. So
it was
based
really good
on herself. I'm not sure the story, but the character is herself. And then the actress who played I forget her name. The actress that played the character is also autistic, and so I think that's so amazing that, again, you're getting the lived experience of a person who's functioning quite well in high school, but has these needs that that, if not met, they have shutdown and meltdown and stuff like that. So that was very enjoyable to watch.
Did you watch the program?
Oh, definitely. Yes, loved it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I binged it. When was that? Like a couple days ago. I think on the weekend. I was like, I started watching like one episode, and then I was like, oh, this is so good. And then
it's really cute, really cute.
And then I saw she had fidgets at one point in the show, and I was like, oh, I'm like, this makes so much more sense.
Initially, I thought, because there's something called portraying an autistic character, but then there's something else called coded autistic. So sometimes they don't say that they're autistic. Sometimes they say they're autistic and they announce their diagnosis in the program, and that's playing an autistic character. But when they don't say like what it is that they have, but it's called coded, they coded autistic. So in the beginning I said, oh, she's definitely autistic. But then when I actually read the comments of the author and the actress, then I realized that actually she was portraying an autistic character. It wasn't just coded, So very interesting and fun program to watch.
Fun program. Yeah. Anyways, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our tribe and our community. Please subscribe to our channel,
and share with anybody who you think will benefit from our conversation.
Yes, please share this with anybody who would love to have tips on traveling and having successful experiences with their autistic children or neurodiverse children when they're traveling. Anyways, we love you all.
Bye.
And we'll
be traveling.